Okay, everyone, we are back. I wanted to share with you some information. So, a couple weeks ago, I sent a few questions over to Henrico County's Public Relations Department, asking Henrico a few basic questions. And they responded back by saying, well, they didn't answer my questions. And they just said, we follow VDH's guidance, right? I don't even think they know what that means. But, that's what they like to say. We're following VDH's guidance. So I have since got some documents back, and I want to share them with you. So I'm going to show you the questions that I sent to Henrico Public Relations that they refused to answer. And then I'm going to show you some documents that indicate how they were planning on responding, but then just scrapped the whole thing and said, we follow VDH's guidance. So let's jump into that, shall we? Here we go. What I sent to public relations. Number one, a source tells me that it was the Board of Supervisors who decided to start adding hydrofluorosilicic acid, fluoride, to the community water supply at the end of 2024 after they had received information that hydrofluorosilicic acid is a well-known neurotoxin. They didn't respond to this. Number two, a source tells me that it is the Board of Supervisors who is currently deciding that hydrofluorosilicic acid, fluoride, be added to the community drinking water. Could you please tell me if the above information is correct? All right, they don't want to answer. So, who are the Henrico Board of Supervisors responsible for contaminating our drinking water with hydrofluorosilicic acid, which has a pH of 1.2 and is a well-known neurotoxin? Well, we've got the chair, Dan Schmidt. We have Roscoe D. Cooper III. He is the vice chair. We have Misty Roundtree. We have Jody Rogish, and we have Tyrone Nelson. All right, number three. Please provide me the studies that Henrico County has relied upon to determine that it's safe for pregnant women and babies to ingest hydrofluorosilicic acid through Henrico County's public drinking water. Okay, we know they don't have any studies that they've relied upon. They put it in the drinking water and they had no idea what they were doing. Number four, what studies has Henrico used to determine that it's safe to use the public water supply to deliver medication in mass without securing a medical products license or ensuring that the fluoride compound used complies with pharmaceutical standard? Guys, the hydrofluorosilicic acid is contaminated with things like lead and arsenic and mercury. This hydrofluorosilicic acid is not cleaned up to pharmaceutical standards, such as the sodium fluoride that's being added into your toothpaste. Okay, this is dirty stuff. There's a little bit of cleanup, but it's not cleaned up to the point of pharmaceutical standards. Not that that would magically make it better. It's just worse that they don't clean it properly. Okay, number five. Why has Henrico decided to use a discharge from the fertilizer and aluminum factories, which still contains other neurotoxins and heavy metals such as arsenic, lead, and mercury, which add to the adverse toxic impact of this cumulative poison? And so, again, I said, see their Henrico's water quality report. Number six, are the individuals in the county who are responsible for the hydrofluorosilicic acid in Henrico County's water concerned that they are violating the Code of Virginia 18.2-54.1, attempts to poison? So this state law is interesting. It's a little bit difficult to read, but I want to read it to you. So it says, if any person administers or attempts to administer any poison or destructive substance in food, drink, prescription or over-the-counter medicine, or otherwise, or poisons any spring, well, waterworks, as defined in 32.1-167, or reservoir of water with the intent to injure another person, he shall be guilty of a class 3 felony. So hydrofluorosilicic acid is a well-known neurotoxin. And so one might come to the conclusion that they are adding a poison into the water. One could understand, so a poison. One could say that this is a destructive substance. That's clear because it corrodes away the pipes. It leaches lead out of the water pipes. It is a very destructive substance to the pipes, as well as to people's health, as well as to the waterworks operators, and prescription or over-the-counter medicine. Now, there are court cases. Actually, there's, I think it's called the Delaney, I'm having a hard time remembering it. But essentially, the House committee did an investigation of water fluoridation years ago, and they call it, they say it's mass medicating. So they admit this is mass medicating. A lot of people don't want to say it's a medicine. They want to call it a mineral, but this is a destructive substance that damages the brains of children. So I don't care what y'all call it. Number 7, the Safe Drinking Water Act requires that a truthful annual water quality report go out to consumers. Why did Henrico claim in the 2024 annual water quality report that the fluoride levels were NA not applicable when there was in fact fluoride in the drinking water in 2024? Does Henrico feel that this was a falsification of records? So they say, oops, well, let's go to it. I didn't actually intend on going, but we might as well. So we've got the fluoride, and let's zoom into the document. And it says amount detected in D, not detected, range not applicable, meaning, they say, well, it doesn't apply because it wasn't detected. Okay, they were adding fluoride into the drinking water. So this is a problem. Okay. All right, back to the document. So we have hydrofluorosilicic acid, number 8. Let's scroll up. Hydrofluorosilicic acid is not a nutrient. There is no such thing as a hydrofluorosilicic acid deficiency. Hydrofluorosilicic acid has a pH of 1.2. This is a strong corrosive acid that harms the waterworks operators as well as the public. Is Henrico County concerned that they are violating number 1 of the Nuremberg Code, where the voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential? And then I cited the Nuremberg Code. Medical consent, and I cited any preventive, diagnostic, and therapeutic medical intervention is only to be carried out with the prior free and informed consent of the person concerned, based on adequate information. Henrico has no idea what this stuff does to the human body. They haven't retrieved adequate information. The consent should, where appropriate, be expressed and may be withdrawn by persons concerned at any time and for any reason without disadvantage or pre-justice. And in number 1 of the Nuremberg Code, they state that you cannot coerce someone into taking the medicine or having a medical treatment. When Henrico has a monopoly on the water and they put it into the community drinking water, that is coercion without a doubt. So they are violating number 1 of the Nuremberg Code. What else is Henrico violating? They are violating medical consent and bioethics and human rights. And so here we are right here. The interest and welfare of the individual should have priority over the sole interest of science or society. In other words, if a few people need insulin, you don't drug everyone with insulin. If a few people need blood pressure medicine, you don't drug everyone with blood pressure medicine. If a few people need calcium, you don't drug everyone with calcium. If a few people need iron, you don't give everyone iron. Okay, this is extremely barbaric. We should have individualized medicine. You don't mass medicate. Everyone's drug needs are different. Everyone's vitamin needs are different. And if they want to pretend like they want to call this a mineral, everybody's mineral needs are different. Okay, I don't need asbestos. That's a mineral. I don't need that. There is no cell in the human body that requires fluoride. Okay, this is not something you need. Just like you don't need mercury in the body, you don't need lead in the body. Fluoride is another thing that you do not need in the body. You don't need arsenic in the body. Okay. So then I go on again. This is a cover of one of the packages. This is hydrofluorosilicic acid. Clearly, it says danger, poison. So they're actively adding a poison into your drinking water. And Henrico is the source of the contaminant. Hydrofluorosilicic acid is considered a contaminant. Okay, the EPA defines this as a contaminant. The Board of Supervisors has decided to purchase hydrofluorosilicic acid from Univar Solutions. So the Board of Supervisors is actually the source of the contaminant that's being added into the drinking water. So the Board of Supervisors tells the purchasing department to buy hydrofluorosilicic acid. Okay. Let's start at the bottom. The waterworks operators are the individuals dumping this into the drinking water. They don't want it into the drinking water. They know it's bad, but they're just following orders. So they put it in the drinking water. The DPU director, Bentley Chan, helps the waterworks operators put this into the water. Who's above Bentley Chan? We have the county manager, John Vitulkas. So John Vitulkas is also helping to add this contaminant into the drinking water. Then we have the Board of Supervisors. Let's remember who they are. We have Dan Schmidt is adding this contaminant into the drinking water. He's responsible. We have Roscoe D. Cooper is also responsible for this contaminant in the drinking water. Misty Roundtree, Jody Rogish, and Tyrone Nelson. Okay. So we have all of these Board of Supervisors that are responsible for adding this contaminant into the drinking water. They would like to call this contaminant an additive because that way it sounds nicer. Virginia Department of Health would like to call this contaminant a mineral, but the EPA actually defines fluoride a contaminant, which means hydrofluorosilicic acid is a contaminant because it is a type of fluoride. So this is a contaminant according to the EPA, and the EPA regulates this contaminant, okay? They do not want you to be putting in loads of fluoride. It doesn't work that way, okay? The EPA under oath had said that the margin of safety should be 0.15 parts per million. Henrico County is adding in 0.7 parts per million. Why are we deliberately adding a contaminant into the drinking water against people's will, okay? So this additive it says on your water quality report, is actually a contaminant called hydrofluorosilicic acid. So after the waterworks operators, they put it into the water and they get the approval of the DPU director, Bentley Chan, John Vitulkis, the county manager, the board of supervisors. They then purchase hydrofluorosilicic acid from Univar Solutions. Univar Solutions gets this contaminant from a fertilizer industry in Florida. And in Florida, this is a hazardous waste product. They capture this hazardous waste product, they put it in a barrel, and then label it as a product. As soon as they put it in a barrel, it all of a sudden stops being a hazardous waste product and magically turns into a product. Okay, hazardous waste into a product. So that's the scheme that's going on. All right, this is important for the next bit of information I have to show you. Okay, guys, so this was what I received from the county regarding the questions for public relations. So they needed to ask a lot of people in public relations what to do on this one. They've got lots of redactions, more redactions, more redactions. This is all redacted in response to me asking these questions. Okay. So I think this part in yellow was what they were going to say in response to my, why are you adding a discharge into the water? And they say 0.7 parts per million of fluoride in the water does not state that Henrico is adding a discharge. This is exhausting. They don't understand that when Henrico calls it an additive, their additive is technically a discharge from the fertilizer industry, right? Their hydrofluorosilicic acid that they would prefer calling an additive is technically a discharge from the fertilizer industry. They don't understand this. It says, as listed in the report, fluoride can come from a few typical sources shown as erosion of natural deposits, water additives, which promote strong teeth, discharge from fertilizer and aluminum industries. These typical sources do not imply Henrico is adding from these sources unless specifically identified as an additive. The cumulative total of fluoride in the water from the report was 0.7 parts per million from all potential sources of fluoride, including but not limited to the additive from our waterworks facility. Okay, this was in the 2023 report. Here's the kicker, though, is when Henrico stopped putting fluoride in the drinking water, there was no fluoride in the drinking water. So that means that Henrico doesn't get any naturally occurring fluoride, and Henrico is not getting any discharge from a nearby fertilizer and aluminum industry. The only source of fluoride that Henrico is getting is from an additive that the waterworks operators are deliberately putting into the water. This additive is hydrofluorosilicic acid. Hydrofluorosilicic acid is actually a discharge from a fertilizer industry in Florida. Okay, so I don't think they quite understand. They probably think the discharge from aluminum and fertilizer industries or discharge from fertilizer and aluminum factories is a different type of additive that goes into the waterworks. Yes and no. If it was coming straight from the factories, then it's a little bit worse. What they do is they sell the discharge, they clean it up a little bit, not to pharmaceutical grade, but they clean it up a little bit. There's still mercury, lead, cadmium, all sorts of disgusting things in it. They package it and sell it as an additive. This additive is a contaminant that harms the brains of babies. So the additive is a contaminant, and Henrico County is purchasing a contaminant and then deliberately adding this contaminant to our public drinking water. That's what's going on. I don't know if these public relations people quite understand how the process works, which is probably why they never sent this to me. Okay, again, this is probably more of my questions. They redacted it, and we've got more redactions. We've got asking questions. Okay, so this was what they were going to say in response to question 3. So studies. They were going to say Henrico County follows the guidance from the VDH, the State Board of Health, and the State Health Commissioner, which all recommend that community water systems in Virginia maintain the optimal level of fluoride in community waterworks. What's interesting is from the other FOIA responses, yeah, VDH on their website recommends it. Their guidance says do what HHS says, and HHS has not recommended water fluoridation since 2014 after they got sued in 2011. So technically speaking, VDH's guidance doesn't actually recommend water fluoridation. It doesn't even state what the purpose or justification of water fluoridation is, okay? So where was I? Since 2015, the optimal level of concentration is 0.7 milligrams per liter. While their recommendations have fluctuated a bit over the years, they fluctuated because in 2011, HHS got sued. Okay, so HHS stopped recommending water fluoridation in 2014. Then in 2015, the Public Health Service grabbed the baton and started recommending water fluoridation, but they lowered it to 0.7 parts per million. See, they keep showing that fluoride is a hazard to humans. This has always been a hazard to humans. So the government used to say, oh, let's put 5 parts per million in the water. And then after people, fought for years and years, they said, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. We should lower it. And then again in 2015, they lowered it again, right? So it says, while their recommendations have fluctuated a bit over the years, they've consistently recommended fluoride to the community water system since 1962. These agencies are responsible for reviewing the available studies and delivering their recommendations for the communities with water systems. And so for information on the specific studies, we recommend reaching out to them. Now, I know what Virginia Department of Health has to say on this matter. What's disturbing is that Henrico County has no idea why they have no idea what the purpose of putting this in the water is. They have no idea what the justification for putting this in the water. They have no idea what adverse events are for people. They have no idea if pregnant women or babies should avoid this, which even the CDC does not recommend water that pregnant women and babies drink fluoridated water. Okay, this is absurd. They've got no idea what they're doing. Okay, number 4, so I'm pointing out the product license. There's no product license, and this does not comply with pharmaceutical standards. So this was what they were going to say. The Environmental Protection Agency sets and enforces a maximum safe level. It's actually a maximum contaminant level. It's not a maximum safe level under the Safe Drinking Water Act for community water systems, but leaves the decision to treat water with fluoride up to individual states and localities. Okay, so here they're saying they're treating the water. You don't actually need fluoride to treat the water. This isn't used to treat the water. It's used to treat the people, for the purpose of preventing cavities. but at the cost of causing brain damage to children. And even the evidence on preventing cavities, it is not statistically significant. So this is ridiculous. Just because something has a purpose doesn't mean it's a good idea. There's lots of things that have a purpose, but it's a terrible idea to do, just like drugging people without their permission. So they go on to say VDH uses that information plus recommendations from other federal agencies such as the CDC and the U.S. Public Health Service to update their recommendations for local governments. Well, yeah, local government should make the decision, but the local government in Henrico did not make this decision. First, they claimed they don't know who's in charge. Then they claim the DPU director gets to decide whether or not to drug 330,000 people. Then they said it was the county manager that gets to decide to drug 330,000 people. Now they say they don't know who's making the decision to drug 330,000 people. I mean, the incompetence is unreal. Okay, Henrico maintains a license to operate and use Waterworks chemicals through the Virginia Department of Professional and Occupational Regulation. The Board for Waterworks and Wastewater Works Operations in DPOR issues the license, and the board is made up of licensed professionals, VDH representatives, and one citizen member. Okay, that's nice. So number 5, why has Henrico decided to use a discharge from the fertilizer and aluminum factories, which still contains other neurotoxins and heavy metals such as arsenic, lead, and mercury, which add to the adverse toxic impact of this cumulative poison? They were, this was what they came up with, but obviously they did not send this to me. They said the portion of the 2023 annual water quality report, which states that Henrico had a 0.7 parts per million of fluoride in the water, does not state that Henrico is adding this discharge. As listed in the report, fluoride can come from a few typical sources shown as erosion of natural deposits, water additive which promotes strong teeth, discharge from fertilizer and aluminum factories. These typical sources do not imply Henrico is adding from these sources unless specifically identified as an additive. I don't even understand what they're saying. On the water quality report, it says that the source of the fluoride in Henrico's drinking water is an additive that's being deliberately added into the water, aka a contaminant that's being deliberately added into the water. It says natural sources, and it says fertilizer and aluminum factories. But that water quality report is not truthful, because when Henrico stopped deliberately adding fluoride into the drinking water, magically there was no fluoride in the drinking water whatsoever, which means that we're not actually getting fluoride from a nearby, factory that's contaminating our river or natural source. Our source of fluoride is coming from hydrofluorosilicic acid that the waterworks operators are deliberately adding into the drinking water, that the DPU director, Bentley Chan, is deliberately approving to go into the drinking water, that John Vitulkas is deliberately going along with this, along with the Henrico Board of Supervisors. The Henrico County employees are the source of the contamination of Henrico's drinking water with hydrofluorosilicic acid, which EPA categorizes as a contaminant because it causes bone disease, it causes your teeth to become disfigured, it causes cognitive neurodevelopmental disorders, it causes thyroid problems. This is not a nutrient. This is a contaminant. They can call it an additive. They can put lipstick on a pig. They can call it a mineral. They can call it whatever they want, but it is harmful to humans. They would love for you not to understand. They like to use a word that drums up beautiful imagery in your mind. This is a hazardous waste byproduct, okay? Number 6. The individuals in the county who are responsible i.e., Board of Supervisors, County Manager, DPU Director, waterworks operators. So that all are the individuals in the county who are responsible for the hydrofluorosilicic acid in Henrico's drinking water, concerned that they are violating 18.2-54.1 attempts to poison. Okay, we've gone over that. This is a poison. It's a destructive substance. You could call it a prescription or over-the-counter medicine. It's absolutely an over-the-counter medicine. They're added into the drinking water. They know it harms, which shows intent to injure another person. And they say no, Henrico is not concerned that adding fluoride to the water is a violation of the law. I think that they should read this one more time. And then lastly, because on the 2024 annual water quality report, they said that there was no fluoride in the drinking water. And so I asked, does Henrico feel that this was a falsification of records? And they needed to phone a friend. So they asked the Department of Public Utilities Director, Bentley Chan, and they said, Bentley Chan, Bentley, any insight to this? It says ND for none detected. I'm guessing he's right. On the water quality report, it does say ND, not detected, and also NA, not applicable. And so he says, I'm sure it's not a falsification of records. Well, I don't know. I ask you, public, when there's fluoride in the drinking water in 2024, but your annual water quality report says that no fluoride was detected, do you think that that's a falsification of records? Okay, guys, so what do you think? Pretty interesting, right? So the public relations guy, in response to all my questions, he said, the mealy-mouthed, we follow VDH's recommendations, we follow the Virginia Department of Health's regulations and so forth and so on, right? They don't even know what that means. But as you can see, behind the scenes, they were writing up a response and they were trying to figure out how to handle me. And what I think happened is, they're writing everything up and they were defending water fluoridation. But then, so, they're defending it. They see was added in the drinking water in 2023. And then they get to the 2024 water quality report and they see there's no fluoride in the drinking water in 2024. And so how do they reconcile with this, right? They spent, however many days trying to figure out how to respond to this. And then they get to 2024 and see, wait, that report says there's no fluoride in the drinking water. I just defended water fluoridation. Why wasn't there any fluoride in the drinking water, right? And so at that point, I'm sure they were like, what? What the heck is going on, right? I don't know. If anything, at least it gets these people, thinking about these questions, right? Because you can't address the issue until you start thinking about it, right? And it just seems like none of these people know what's going on. I mean, the fact that it's public relations that's trying to respond to these questions, they don't understand this stuff clearly, right? I mean, has any of these people ever taken a nutrition class, for Pete's sakes? Did any of these people take a organic chemistry class or microbiology or statistics or, I don't know, read any of the research for the last 10 years? Doubtful. So they don't have any clue what they are doing. And that's disturbing, right? Because they're putting this contaminant into the drinking water and they have no earthly idea why. This is extremely reckless, which is why I believe Henrico is extremely vulnerable to a class action lawsuit. And I've been reading up more and more on the Flint, Michigan case and how they try to cover up what they did. And there's a lot of parallels between Henrico and Flint, Michigan, right? In Flint, Michigan, they were doing things they did not have the authority to do. There was a falsification of records. They had no idea what the safety was. They had no clue what they were doing, and that's exactly what's going on in Henrico. Henrico has no clue what the adverse events are. They say they have no documents for the purpose or the justification of this. What are they doing? I mean, Misty Roundtree, I thought she was a lawyer. And I thought she would be a great ally on this. I thought, I'm going to send her the information. She's going to read, the science that I provided. She'll understand that there was no ordinance, so therefore they don't have the authority to be putting this into the drinking water. And I thought it was all going to be wrapped up after a week. And no, in fact, she's defending it. In fact, she laughs when I say she's harming the brains of babies. Dan Schmidt laughs when I say that he is harming the brains of babies. These are the behaviors of a psychopath. Only psychopaths laugh at the thought of contaminating the drinking water, harming the brains of babies, harming the thyroid, harming the bones, causing dental fluorosis, harming people's enzymes, damaging the mitochondria, damaging the pineal gland, right? They laugh at this, okay? So this whole thing is going to be documented for history, and we will see. We will see. Will it be I who will be deemed cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs? I doubt it, being that more and more states are banning water fluoridation, and city by city, county by county, people are getting rid of the fluoride. So who is going to be on the right side of history? Is it going to be me, who's been fighting to get rid of this contaminant out of our drinking water, this additive out of our drinking water, this mineral out of our drinking water, this discharge out of our drinking water? Or will it be the Board of Supervisors? Will they be on the right side of history? Or will this cause their political career to plummet to the ground and lose favor with the people? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it all pans out. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that. So I will see you next time. Make sure you give a thumbs up. You smash the like button. Leave a comment below that says, how about that says stop, right? That says stop. Let's just stop. I think that's a good idea. Okay? Bye, guys. See you next time.